Hey, good morning everyone. And today I am going to be covering another long video, I'm afraid. I recorded a version of this yesterday, but after looking over it and then going back through the MacStitch manual, I decided that it was still not going over all of the details necessary. And basically what I want to do in this video is go over how to export your finished cross-stitch pattern into a PDF. There have been a lot of changes since the upgrade to the 2021 version of MacStitch. And these are really good changes. They're very useful changes. But if you've never exported a document to PDF from MacStitch, it can be a little bit confusing. So I have a whole large page of notes next to me, and I'm going to try to go over this as if you have never used MacStitch and you've never exported a chart to PDF in your life. So that's how we're pretending today. If you have done this before, you might want to check out some of my other videos like the upgrades to MacStitch in 2021 for just a quick recap on that. Or you can skip ahead. I'm going to make sure that I put plenty of chapters in here and details about those. So if you check the description box, you'll be able to see what topics I'm covering, and you can just skip to those sections as needed. But I'm going to try to go in depth. This might be pretty long, so apologies in advance, but I want to cover as many details as possible. I'm going to be using this free pattern that I made again. I'm not making money off this, I promise Nintendo. And I chose this one because it's a little bit on the large side. It has only a few colors, so it's not too complicated there, and it does have some back stitching. So that is why I'm working with this particular one. I'm going to be working with the cover sheet that I made in my previous video. So I'll just open that up real quick so you guys can see that. There's going to be a link to this in the top right corner as well. So if you want help making a cover sheet, please check this out. This is the Pages version, but we had to export this to PDF in the previous video as well. And so I'd like to go over from the beginning. So first thing is we want to make sure, we've got everything done. And let's say that we want to have our logo in our design. Now, this is something a lot of people want to work on for this. And to do that, we just go into the Preferences menu. And I've already changed it. Usually I have it as Little Stab Studios, and that one is down here, I think in Graphics. But right now I'm working with an example studio, and I'm pretending I'm brand new designer. So I made that under desktop, and I think I moved it around. So I hope it's still in there. It's this example logo.png. So all you have to do is find your logo file that you've created. Again, I covered that in the previous video, so please check that. I'll just take close for now because I don't want to save any changes since I did move the file. And another thing that we're going to want to do with that is get it in the chart perhaps. Because if you're going to be exporting this onto one page, you have the option to have a logo in the design. But if you're going to be exporting this onto multiple pages, you might want your logo to show up in the chart. So if I select an area like this, there's no stitches under here, this is white space, and I hit Option. And if I look at the bottom, we have the chance to add a text box, to add copyright, or to show logo in this area. As you saw in Preferences, I told them what file my logo is. So if I click Show Logo in this area, pop, it goes right there. And right now it's just showing a white background, but this is a transparent image. So when I show it in the framed view, it's going to look like it is right on the Aida or the linen. And I also want to pretend, I haven't done this one I don't think before, but I like changing the fabric sometimes. So let's say I like this number 2 one. It's got a nice tight weave to it. And then it's going to pop up after I click that with this box. And on the right, you can see the stitches are going over one square. So this would be on Aida, for example. And then on the left, we have the option to go over two. And if I click that, it doesn't look like anything's changed here, but that's because we're in the block view. But as soon as I click on something like this, which is the stitched view, it is going to look very different if I zoom in. And you'll now see that all of the stitches appear to be stitched over two, as if you were stitching on linen. And I think this gives a really nice view to it. And again, because I'm still in the working area, my image file is like that. But then I'm going to go to View, and I'm going to pretend that you don't have a prepared image of your chart yet, and you want to get that up. So we're going to go to View and Framed View. It's going to take a minute. And now we're going to get this as an image file so that we can show people what our design will look like or look similar to if they decide to stitch it. So you've got your logo down there, which is very cute. You've got the fabric looking like linen. You can have it as Aida. It's up to you. And now we can mess around with the frames a little bit. I showed this in the 2021 update version as well. I do like playing with the frames. It's a bit fun for me. So let's pretend we like this. Maybe we want to change the outer mount. Maybe you want a nice pink. Yeah, just to make it very different from what I had before. Although actually, I'm remembering I have a nice dark blue. There, that's fine for now. We'll go with this. And then if you want to make it look more like a mock-up that you might see on some charts online, you can even add a wall effect. And this will make it look like your design is hanging up. Let's pretend it is on a rusty wall. And it looks even more like a professional image, basically, when you do them this way. This does increase the file size significantly, I would say, because these are very detailed images in the background. So just keep that in mind, that it will increase the size quite a bit. You can mess around with it, and then whenever you're ready, let's say we like this, we were going to click on this export parentheses PNG. And then we want to save it. I'll save it on the desktop. And why don't we save this one as example fairy. And I want to make sure I remember to type in .png. So otherwise my computer gets confused. I'm going to click save. And then I can click cancel to get out of that window. If I move this over, we'll see it is right here now, example fairy.png. If I didn't have my cover sheet already made, I could pop this into the cover sheet as the image file. So that is how you get an example. And again, by including this here, we have the logo on there as well. So now that we've got the logo up and we've got the framed view created, we are going to work on exporting the chart finally. So we go up to this import export button. And the first one we're going to work through is export to PDF with the full key. And this is going to be best for this particular image because I do have quite a bit of backstitch on the wings. And I want to make sure that everybody knows what color is used and how many threads I recommend, etc. This file, again, if we look over here at the top, I've got the ruler set in inches, and you can see it's less than 7 inches across. And my printer paper size is set to A4, which is 8.3 inches across. So doing the entire chart is going to be just fine. It's not going to take up more space than this image. If you're working with a larger chart though, I would not recommend clicking the entire chart, and instead for symbols across the page, if you look up in the MacStitch manual, they recommend between 55 and 70 symbols. So if I was going to go with, maybe 60 symbols across the page, that's going to be very easy for a bunch of people to read. So if you have a large pattern, I would recommend going with, again, between 55 and 70 is what Ursa Software recommends. And I would agree with that based on some of the larger patterns that I've purchased. They seem to have around that many symbols. But again, this is a small pattern, so I will click the entire chart. It automatically bumps it up to 99, but that's just to fit any chart. This is only going to have, up to 112 symbols. So it will be pretty easy to read still. If I go to Style, this is where I can edit what the actual charts are going to look like in the PDF. So you can choose a lot of different views for your stitchers to be able to read. The easiest ones I've found personally are symbols on color and then symbols. And actually, I want to cancel this real quick just so I can go back to the block view. These are the symbols that are going to be used. This is the black and white symbol, so it's going to take the symbol for each thread and assign it a random position based on it. So I've got these hearts. I know that's going to be 3747. This is the black and white view. And here's symbols on color. This is the one that I like the best to view. I find it very easy to read. You've got the color of the thread and you've got a symbol. Whereas with the color symbols, it's a little bit light most of the time, especially I can barely see some of the lighter threads. So I do really like the symbols on color, and I recommend that one if you're going to be exporting to PDF. Here, Style, so symbols on color, and then I also do symbols for people who like to work in black and white. And then if you're doing, diamond canvas, you could select that. You can show a stitched view if you want to, but since we already have an example image, I would personally not do it. Tent stitch is going to show the entire chart as if you stitched it in tent stitch or half stitch style. Again, that's only going to be an example. So in general, I find symbols and color and symbols to be plenty. Then the grid, definitely want the grid on so that it is easy for people to figure out where they are. And you can do solid lines all throughout. You could do dashed lines, or this one is new, the dashed but solid every 5. And I found that really nice as well. It's a lot easier to read the different areas of the chart, and I find I don't get lost as much with that. The center lines, it's going to have those arrows clear. Again, very useful for stitchers. Rows and columns, again, great for doing math and counting. Center marks, and then the title of the pattern, and then I have it set to automatically default to my copyright, but I'm going to switch it for this one and go to Example Design Studios. So now that is a little bit easier to read. And I'll go ahead and keep in the page number, even though it's going to be a little bit off since I'm going to be including a cover sheet. For a preview page, if you don't want to make an entire cover sheet, you can just go with something like one of these. You can tell it to give it a stitched view or a stitched view with no cloth. You can do 10 stitches or blocks, or you can go with framed view, which would be what I would recommend, and it'll put this on a separate page. It will put the title and then your copyright information along with this image. It's very simple, but it is a good substitute for a cover page if you're having trouble with that. So you can always click use this, and then it's going to do the framed view of that and the cover, and the title. But we're going to click none because we're going to include a cover page instead. So I'm going to come up here and click cover page, and then I'll just reselect it again. I go to desktop and I'm going to select the cover page that we made in the previous video, and I had to make one small change to it to include the copyright information. So I'm going with example cover sheet 2.pdf. I cannot use a pages file. I did double check, and cover pages can be a PDF file, they can be a PNG image, or a JPEG image. You can use any of those 3 file types. I have accidentally selected a Pages document or a Word document before, and it will go through the motions as if it is going to load it, but then in your final PDF, there's nothing for the cover page. So keep in mind, it won't give you an error message, but it won't load that up. So you do need to make sure you're using a PDF, a PNG, or a JPEG image. And a PDF is going to be the easiest way to make sure that you have a supported file that's going to be the same size as the rest of your pattern. So get that going. And I'm not going to do a footer page. I don't think you need this most of the time, but I will go with the thread sorter. So I was double checking what this is for because I was a little confused actually. I like it. I think it's cute. But I wasn't sure why we'd need a thread sorter in addition to the key, and I realized it's so that you can print it out on cardboard and it will look like those kits that you'll receive sometime with the floss all organized on that piece with the hole punches in it. And I was like, oh, okay, now I see what that's for, and it definitely makes sense. So I'll print that as an example. And basically what you would do is print it out on some card, or else you can print it on paper and then glue it on cardboard, and then you can punch the holes in and sort your thread that way. So that's really cool if you're making up your own kits to sell as well, or if you just want to organize your own project using the thread sorter method. So that is what it is for, and I'm glad I double checked that. Now we're getting into the key. This is where it gets a little bit more confusing looking. So we want to make sure that we have the key, and I want to make sure that we're showing the symbols because otherwise it would be a little bit difficult to figure out the differences between some of these colors. I like to have the number, the name, and I want to have how many strands. It's all in 2 strands, but it's still nice to make sure people understand that. You can show them about how much thread they're going to need, and standard it's going to show you I have mine set to inches in the preferences. I believe usually it will show you in yards or meters depending on your country setting, but if you click this in skeins, this is going to show you an estimate in 8-meter skeins. So I have some Cosmo threads, which is a popular Japanese company. They do 8-meter skeins, so that would be accurate for Cosmo threads. Where is some DMC? Is actually not bobbinated. I have been going through my stash and getting everything all nice and organized. Here's some. Okay, so DMC is also an 8-meter skeins. So I think that's going to be standard for a lot of the big companies. I don't have some anchor within arm's reach, but I would assume it's in 8-meter skeins as well. I would be careful if you're doing this with some of the smaller companies. However, I don't think Classic Colorworks or Week Dye Works goes all the way up to 8 meters. I think they're a little bit smaller because, you know, they're hand dyeing everything. But if you're using DMC colors, you can definitely do that, and it'll give your stitcher a good estimate of how many skeins they should buy for the project, which is also very useful. If you have any knots or beads, you want to click those on so that that's included, but I don't have any of those in here. I like to show how many stitches are done in every color, because I like to be able to estimate, you know, how long I want my thread to be cut and that sort of thing, or if maybe I want to substitute a color. So that's really useful as well. You can include this subtitle, and that's going to pop up near your key. This one is just showing me how many, I think the H is for horizontal. I'm not entirely sure. I know the PI is per inch. And technically this is just letting me know this is 16 stitches per inch. Again, I'm not 100% on what the H is for. It shows me how many stitches the entire design is, and then how large that is at this particular cloth size. And then for the backstitch key, I do have some backstitch and I want that to be shown, and I like to have the name available as well as the color information. So I click that, and then I'm going to go down to other, and you can include this information, which I think is a really nice upgrade. And that means that I can make it very easy for all of my stitchers to see how large this project would be at 14, 16, 18, all the way up to if they decided to stitch this 1/1 on 32 count. So in general, I would say 14, 16, 18 are probably fine, even just 14 and 16, because if you're stitching 2/2 on 28 count or 32 count, it'll be the same as the 14 and the 16. These are estimates, but I do think they're fairly accurate based on other stitch calculators that I've used. I like to have notes on most of mine because I tend to ramble and I want to make sure I give more information than necessary rather than less. So I let people know stuff like the white, it's only 19 stitches, so you can leave it out or you can replace it. If you want to replace it, I recommend replacing with this one. And then I'll let them know the text is the only one in 161. And if you don't want to have yet another color, you could substitute. And I recommend this one. And I let them know what the back stitching is just in case. And then you can include these. I think, again, it's standard. We'll go to all of them. And it's only going to include them if they're in your design. I don't have any knots and I don't have any beads, so they're not going to pop up in there. The watermark, again, that's in my 2021 update video. That is going to go over everything that you have in your pattern. And so far, I don't like including the watermark all over it because I do find it a little difficult to read, especially even for myself. So personally, I would use it only to show an example of the pattern, but I wouldn't use it for a pattern that I'm selling or anything. And I would not click this in general unless you want to show an example of what your patterns look like and save it as an image. But in general, I would keep it unclicked. The thumbnail view, it's just going to show real quick how it looks. The thumbnail view does not include a view of your cover page. It's just going to start from chart 1. But I do like to double check and make sure that, okay, it has everything loaded up in the correct size. You can see they even got the logo down there, so that's really cute. And then color choice, I want to let you guys know, this is all about how the symbols appear. This is not going to show different colors that you could use as substitutes. This is all about how it's viewed in PDF or in the printer. If you want to do other threads, what you'd want to do is look into colorways instead. So, just FYI. Same thing with the backstitch color. You can do always in black, always in grayscale. I'll click color, but black and black symbol view so that it would print off nicely if somebody was doing that. Again, though, this is just about printing it. If you want to have alternative colors for your stitchers listed, you'll need to do that in colorways, okay? And once we have finished everything, we've gone down and gone through all of these. This is for loading up different settings. We don't need to worry about that for now. We're going to click OK. It's going to ask us how we want to save it. I want to make sure that I find this right away, so I'll just save it as example navigator in all caps, so it's screaming at me, and click save. It's going to save that on the desktop, and then as soon as you finish that, it's going to load it up in your preferred PDF viewer. So I can see that I remembered to load a PDF file. I did not accidentally click the Word document. Hooray! So we've got our cover page that we made. It's got that example image, it's got our logo, and like I said before, the copyright image. Then we've got the first page of our chart, which is those symbols on color. It loads up our little logo next to it. You don't have to include this. I just wanted to show how it looks if you decide to include it. Here is the black and white version. And again, it's nice, easy to read. If you don't like those symbols, you can change them. I think I've done a video on that. If not, I'll double check that, and I can make a video on changing symbols. And then, very important, we've got the key. Just like we talked about before, we've got the symbols, we've got the color number, we've got their name and strands, estimated length, and stitches. And again, the very nice, easy to read MacStitch key. It does show 2 strands. I didn't bother to change it to 1, but personally, I would do 1 strand of backstitch probably. And then it's also got the notes page, which is a little bit separate, but that's because some people do like to include some long notes on there. It has our estimates for different thread counts. It has the notes that I wrote in about substitutions with color and all the back stitching. And then if we scroll down a little bit more, we've got our thread sorter. So this is again, you know, you would punch a hole in here and then you would have your threads dangling down, and you would maybe cut this out and put it on a piece of cardboard so that you could organize it nicely. And it has the symbol next to it and everything. So that is how we do it all on the full key, which is very useful. If you have back stitching, I do recommend using the full key. And in general, I prefer the full key, but I will also go over how to use the all of it on one page. When you when you export your PDF onto one page, it does not include the notes. So what I like to do instead is put my notes on my pattern. And to do that, we click and we select an area, and I'm going to tell it what I want to say. So what I'm going to do is go to the option, and I'm going to click add a text box here. And I'm thinking, all right, what do I want to say? I just basically want to make the notes about the back stitching. So I would say back stitching is done in 1 strand, because I actually like it in 1 strand. 1 strand of 156 throughout. Something like that. B5200 can be dropped or subbed. I ran out of space. So you only can put in as much text as will fit in this page. B5200 with, let's see if I can get it, 3756. Ooh, yay! Just fits. I can't even get the period in. So I'll hit done. And now I've got the little text box here. This in general is going to stay put, but you can move it a little bit. If I zoom in, scroll down, it will be a little easier. Again, I'll get my select tool and I will select the little text box that I just made, and I'm going to hit options and I'm going to hit move. And unfortunately, it doesn't very easily show me. I think if I remember, this little green crosshair that popped up is going to be showing me where it begins. Oh, no, never mind. That was the middle. So hit undo. So why don't we put it here? No, not quite over enough. Kind of estimate it here. That's a little bit easier to read. It's still not in the way of our chart at all. So now we have our notes on the pattern. We are ready to export to PDF with key on 1 page. And again, I'm going to go ahead and click the entire chart. And for style, I'm going to be fine with, again, the symbols on color and the symbols. We've got all of this is going to, usually it all stays the same as what you had on your previous upload that you just did. Preview page, again, we aren't going to go with that because we have our cover page made instead. And mine, again, always saves the previous cover page that I just used, so the same one is fine. And then for the key, you'll notice it's quite a bit different. So with this one, you have a few choices, and I love the chart sizes at the different counts, and then I like including the title. You can do the copyright, and then you put whatever you want to there. I'll go ahead and click yes, I want the logo. And then you can also, they give you a couple of different ideas that you could put in here, but you can also put your own. Maybe I will put backstitch for the description, and for the label I would put one strand of 156 as well, and that's going to put this into the key. So that's another workaround with making sure that your backstitch information is included. So if you only have one color, this could also work, because the whole point of the key on one page is to keep things simple. And again, the thumbnail view is the same. The color choice will go with the same as well. Click OK. I just noticed that that picture looks a little confused now. Hopefully it'll still work okay. Get rid of this. I'll show you that while we're waiting on this to do something. If you want to get rid of a text box or a logo, they are a little bit special. And they kind of work like layers, but I don't think they pop up in layers. Let's see if they do. No, they don't pop up in layers, but they want to act like layers. Because it's true, it's not part of the chart, right? It's kind of like a little image sitting on top of it. So if you decide you want to get rid of it later, what you want to do is select it, go to Options, and then just hit Erase. And there it goes, it's gone. So the problem was before, it was looking for my logo right on the desktop, but I had moved it because I like to clear off my desktop to two giant folders that are completely disorganized. And so it was like, this image isn't where you said it was, and it was a little bit confused. So now we'll go back to Export with Key on One Page, double click, entire chart, Style, yes, we like those. Preview page, no. Cover page, yes. Footer page, no. And we're going to do no thread sorter this time. And now you can see it found the logo, and it's like, yay! I know what you're talking about. And we've got the label for everything, just like I showed before. We've already got it at 16 stitches per inch, so like this is fine. And again, it's only going to include the things that are there. And then I like to do the thumbnail view just to make sure I didn't accidentally forget to click the entire chart. And I usually go through everything just to make sure it's okay. So click OK, and why don't I choose one page key V, and we'll click Save. And I found that I don't need to do as a PDF, you just give it the name, and it's fine. So again, it remembered our cover sheet. It has that all in place. The key is in there fine. And as you can see, it remembered to put in the text box. So we can tell people about the back stitching still, which I'm sure they appreciate. And this is how those things were. I think I would probably change this up, and I would write backstitch and then one strand of 156 instead, because I would prefer backstitch to be in bold. But the information got across. It includes the logo on the key, but this is the only page of key that you have. So those notes that we could edit, they don't pop up when you do all the key information on one page. So that's something to keep in mind. And this is meant for more simple designs. And if you're doing more complicated ones, I would recommend, again, using the export with full key. So that is it for the key on one page. And we have one more topic to cover in this, which is exporting a PDF for Pattern Keeper. Personally, I don't use Pattern Keeper. Pattern Keeper is an app available for Android devices, and a lot of people are getting into it. Apparently it's supposed to be a really good way to keep track of where you are in your stitching. But again, I've got Mac devices, so I have not been able to try it out, but I have seen more and more people talking about, I want to be able to use X-File with Pattern Keeper. Does anybody know about it? And I'm thinking, I should probably be exporting my charts for Pattern Keeper. And it's actually super easy. It takes about 10 seconds. So I wanted to show that in this example. As soon as you click it, it's just going to pop up with a save box. So I'm going to pick the file name. So let's say Pattern Keeper, or you could do PK, for short. And I'll just sort of Theory. And it's going to save it on the desktop because that's where I've decided to save it. I click Save, and it does all the work for me. Okay, Pattern Keeper is always in black and white, at least when I've saved it this way. It looks like it kind of wanted to get the backstitch information, so maybe if I moved that up, because as you can see, Pattern Keeper always does 70 stitches across and 90 stitches down. So if I had been more careful and specifically placed my text box up here, I probably would have been able to keep that information. I have not used this app, so I don't know how it works exactly. I do know that MacStitch makes it really easy to figure out how to export it into a Pattern Keeper friendly file format. So I am probably going to go back and do this for some of my charts because I feel like I could be reaching different customers who are maybe really passionate about Pattern Keeper just by including this as an additional file. And I don't find this really easy to read personally, so I would probably do this as a second file, because if you're selling on Etsy, for example, I think you can have up to 5 files for a digital product. So I would upload a regular PDF and a Pattern Keeper PDF, and then the customer can choose to download both of them or just one of them, whatever they want to do. So that is something that I would recommend. It does include the additional notes on the Pattern Keeper one. So if you edited your notes, I would recommend again doing the Pattern Keeper one last, because it'll have the notes about substituting colors and the back stitching here, and then it has the information that we asked it to include about the different stitch counts. So if you do this one last, it takes you 10 seconds. It's another way to reach additional people. If you use Pattern Keeper yourself, you might enjoy this as well. Export to PDF with the full key. We did the one page, and then I showed you briefly about PDF for Pattern Keeper. We went over how to add a text box, how to delete a text. Oh, we didn't delete the text box, but it's just like deleting the logo. You hit the selector tool, you select the area, and you can move it if you want to move it, or you can click erase and it'll get rid of it. We showed how to save a framed view and how you can edit that, and you can really customize the look of that. So I think that should cover everything for exporting a chart to PDF. If you have any questions about that, let me know. But I hope this was pretty clear. I tried to go over everything I could think of, and I did go through all of the instruction manual from Ursa Software as well. I recommend that if you still have questions. They have a lot of great pictures in here, and you just go up to the help one and you go to open PDF manual, and I've already got it open. And you can see they've got a lot of really nice pictures on here. And they show a lot of what I did. I know sometimes, I like watching videos as well to learn different things. But if you're okay with reading, they do have the pictures, so it's pretty easy to figure out. And that is probably it for today. Again, if you do have questions, let me know. You can write a comment down below if you found this helpful. Give it a thumbs up or subscribe. That would be nice too. And until later, I hope everyone has a nice week, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye!